Okay, friends, this is the video that ends all videos. No, I'm just kidding. This is a guide, your ultimate guide on buying a house in 2023 and 2024. I'm going to take you through 10 basic steps, stuff you need to know on how to buy a house. This will especially be important for you if you're a first-time home buyer, right? Before we get started, let's roll that footage. All right, guys. So the ultimate guide on how to buy a house in 10 steps in 2023 and 24. Step number 1, gather your documents. Now, some of you might have guessed just now what I was going to say. Maybe you said find a realtor or get a mortgage broker, and so forth and so on. Those things are important, or go find a house or something like that. But so many times when I'll have a conversation with somebody, they've sort of done things in reverse order, which isn't necessarily the worst thing. But the first thing you want to do before you buy a house is make sure that you get pre-approved. Now, of course, I'm not talking to those of you who are buying a house cash. I'm talking to, for the most part, probably first-time home buyers, or maybe you haven't bought a house in a long time. Getting your income documents, asset documents, and any other related documents available, right? So that somebody like myself, your mortgage broker, can assess them, right? To get you pre-approved. That's extremely important. So the first thing you want to do is get your documents together. Get your W-2s for the last 2 years. Get your tax returns if you have them. Get pay stubs for the last 2 months, right? Get you won't necessarily need your credit report because, for example, I can pull that, but you may need stuff that has to do with your 401k if you're going to use that for down payment. You may need your bank statement and so forth and so on. Gather those documents that you already know you're going to need to get approved that have to do with all of your income for the past 2 years and all of your assets that you'll use for your down payment, closing costs, and so forth. Makes things a lot faster when you already have those things in place. Okay. That's number 1. Gather your documents. Okay. Number 2, now you want to find a solid or great mortgage broker. Okay. Now, naturally, I'm a mortgage broker, but I've also worked for large banks and institutions, so I am biased. I do think that brokers are better. However, if you're somebody who already has been working with a banker or something, you have a bank that you trust, great. But you want to make sure that you're working with a lending institution or a lender that you trust, somebody that you know knows their stuff, because loans, especially with mortgages, are complicated. There's a lot of stuff that goes around or goes on, if you will, on the back end that can mess up your loan. I've seen it happen time and time and again in my career where you have someone who thinks that they're pre-approved. They're excited. They get their pre-approval letter. They go shop with their realtor, and they're certain they've got this house. They get under contract. The homeowner, the seller, if you will, accepts their offer. And then the next thing you know, it falls through because that mortgage broker, that lender, messed up. They missed something. They didn't do the right thing. Maybe they didn't know, or they were careless, or worse, maybe they misled the person because they were in desperation mode. Maybe they were desperate. So step 2 is to find a mortgage broker that you trust. Very, very important. I suggest looking online for reviews. My reviews are found on Zillow lenders. You can see those. I'm with Barrett Financial. Barrett Financial has phenomenal reviews, but there's great mortgage brokers out there. Okay. If you need one, I'm happy to help you. My description box information is below. But no matter what, it's important to find a solid mortgage broker or lender that you trust so that when they hand you that pre-approval letter, you can have confidence that you're going to close the transaction, that you're actually going to fund that loan, right? Versus having big mistakes or bumps in the road. And the next thing you know, you don't get the house and you're 30 days later, you're really let down. Okay. So that's number 2, make sure you find somebody solid. Number 3, get your pre-approval, right? So once you have all of your documents in, let's say you're working with me and I put everything into underwriting, I run it through an automated system, right? Let's say I have a pre-approval for you, right? Everything, all systems go. We have 2 green check marks and green thumbs up, if you will. Now you've got your license to shop, which is your pre-approval letter. Now that pre-approval letter allows you to go and make offers on properties that are for sale. And you usually want to have a great realtor. So that's going to lead us, of course, to the next one, step 4, right? Step 4 is to make sure you find a great realtor. There's many great realtors out there, just like there's many great mortgage brokers out there. But I will say you want to move forward here with caution, even if this is somebody that you know, okay? Because in real estate transactions, I'll say it again, are complicated. And because of the fact that they're complicated, you want somebody, in this case, a realtor, who really has done this a lot. I would prefer that you find somebody who's full-time. Part-time isn't necessarily terrible, but more times than not, if you have somebody who's doing it part-time, right, they're going to have less experience with the transaction. And if there's any hitches, any glitches or something that could mess up the transaction, you want somebody who knows how to quickly pick up that baton and run with it versus stumble with it. And I've seen this so many times where someone who's inexperienced or they're careless or maybe they're just doing the bare minimum or something, they wind up dropping the ball, right? And then again, you wind up losing out on this beautiful home that you thought you were going to have. Okay. So I would say again, when you're looking for a realtor, I can bring you a realtor if you need one. I have realtors that are really good friends of mine across the entire United States in many, many different states. Okay. Or you can check online. Zillow has reviews. There's a review section on there, and you can see realtors that have many reviews. That's a good indication. If you have a realtor who has done many transactions, and in this case, specifically purchase transactions, not just sales, but purchase transactions, because those are 2 different things, right? That shows that this person is busy, they're active, they've been doing business and helping buyers like yourself in your specific market, okay? So having a solid, experienced realtor is very, very important, okay? Because that realtor is going to have the knowledge on how to navigate their way through a very tricky situation in many cases. It's not as easy as it seems. One example of that, really quick, before I move on to the next step here, is negotiations. Many realtors, when they first become a realtor, they don't necessarily realize the kinds of complications that we get into in real estate. And one of those is how to successfully negotiate with a seller. If you have a situation where you're working with a realtor that is not experienced in negotiations, and at the same time, you are wanting to buy a house that is popular. So let's say there's 3, 4, 5, 6 different people that are all putting an offer on that house. You want a very solid, and I would go so far as to say aggressive realtor who is on your side that can get your offer accepted and everybody else not, because then you win that house. Okay. Especially today in 2023, many markets across the US are still having bidding wars, even with interest rates with where they are. People are anticipating that maybe next year interest rates are going to go down. They still want to buy. Many people that are renting are tired of renting and they want to have financial freedom in their own independence, and they see homeownership as that way. So when you start shopping with that pre-approval letter and you go out with your realtor, you very well could find that you're going to go up against 1, 2, 3, 4 different people, depending upon your market. And you want a solid realtor who can guide you down that path and help you to win out against everybody else. So that's just one example, okay? But that's our step 4, is to find a very solid realtor, okay? Step 5, find the house. So now that you have your solid realtor, that realtor is probably going to put you on a list, and they're going to ask you some very specific questions about what kind of house you want to buy. Most important thing, where, right? For those of you who don't know, we call it the 3 L's of real estate, right? Sort of like the 2 L's of logical loan. We have the 3 L's of real estate, which is location, location, location. So many times I'll be talking to someone and they'll be looking at houses. They'll think that a house is great, it's wonderful. And the next thing you know, say, oh, it's too far away. The location is terrible, but I love the house. Okay. Your realtor is going to help you with those kind of things. Where you want to, when you're finding the house, what's the location that you want to stay within? What's the bedrooms? What's the bathrooms? What's the condition, right? Sometimes you can buy a fixer-upper home. And for me as a mortgage broker, if I'm working with you, I can potentially help you get what's called an FHA 203K loan, where you could potentially buy a house that needs some work, and then you get the loan that helps you fix the house up before you move in, potentially. Okay. So that would be one option. But when you're looking for the house, make sure you ask as many questions to your realtor as you can about the areas that you're going to move into. If you're moving out of state, if you're moving out of your county or even out of your city, right? Make sure you ask as many questions as possible. That realtor works for you. They work on commission, right? Just like I do. So since they're working for you, make sure that every single parameter that are the most important parameters of your home that you want, right, are met and are put in that listing when you're finding the house. Okay. So again, step 5 is to just find the house. It can seem simple, but oftentimes, since mortgages and real estate is complicated, if you're a first-time home buyer, especially, you start looking at these things. Once you have your pre-approval letter and you've gotten a list of houses that you think would be good for you to move into, once you get in that car and you start driving down the road with your realtor and looking, like kicking the tires, so to speak, and you look in these houses, oftentimes what happens is you start thinking, oh, you have these aha moments where you realize maybe some of these things on my list were less important and maybe some other things are more important. Okay. Location is a big one. Okay. You might think, oh, well, I'll go check out this house over here that's like just 15 minutes more away. And then you go drive there and you realize, oh, you know what? Traffic is really bad from this distance in the morning, and it's going to be really hard to get to work. So oftentimes in real estate, when you're moving, buying a house and stuff, there are things that come up during the transaction that you don't think of, right? They're complicated. So you want to take your time and make sure that this particular house that you're putting an offer on, right, which is the next step, is the exact right one. And you might even put offers on multiple houses. Okay. So that's step 6, submit your offer. Okay. So once you found the house that you love and you're like, this is it, I can feel it in my gut. This is it. This is the one. We got to put the offer in. Bam. Now you just get with your realtor. They'll write up the purchase and sale agreement, is what it's called typically. That purchase and sale agreement has all the information about the house, has the information about your pre-approval, so forth and so on, and they submit it. And then from there, once you've submitted, you just wait for the accepted offer. Okay. Now, this video is going to assume, for the sake of education, that you get your offer accepted. I'll say really quick, though, before I move on, if your offer is not accepted, it may be the case that it's countered. So you might have the seller of the home who says, well, we'd potentially like to accept your offer, but we're going to counter and we want you to pay us, let's say, $30,000 more. Let's say your offer was lower than their asking price, and they come back and they say, oh, no, we want more. Or let's say they counter by saying, we're not going to give you any seller concessions, or we'll give you, 50% of the concessions that you want. Again, for those who don't know, seller concessions is when a seller of a potential home is willing to pay for a portion or all of your closing costs. Okay. Now, sometimes when you're making an offer on a house, if this house has been on the market for a significant period of time, maybe 30, 60, 90 days or more, your realtor may say, hey, this is a good idea to put in a concession request. Let's ask the seller, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we'll purchase your home, but at the same time, what we would like is for you to cover the closing costs. So if you submit an offer like that, it could be the case that they'll accept it, or it could be the case that they'll come back and say, we won't cover all of them. We'll cover, let's say, half of your closing costs. Okay. But that's step 6. So once you've submitted your offer, it gets accepted. Yay, awesome. Now we're going to open escrow. Okay. So now that the offer is accepted, that documentation gets signed off by the seller. And now we're cooking with gas. Okay. So what's going to happen there then is that paperwork is going to come over to me. Let's say I'm your mortgage broker, your lender. I'm going to get the contract and I'm going to put your file into underwriting right from there. So now I'm going to put it into underwriting. Okay. And those steps are going to begin taken on the back end where you're not necessarily going to see it. I'm going to have a processor who begins to gather all your documents, and they're going to start to interact or communicate with the title company, because now we have to get prepared to transfer the title from the previous owner to the new owner, which is you and potentially your spouse or the co-borrower who's on the loan. Okay. So as that's taking place, now we're going to have step number 7, schedule your inspection and schedule your appraisal. Okay. Now, a lot of times I'll have my a coordinator, right? Or I'll have somebody who's a processor who will do that for me, and they'll interact with you. So we want to make sure that we get your inspection. We have to have a home inspector typically go out to the property to inspect it, make sure that it's good to go. So what will happen there is you'll get a call from maybe my processor, or you'll get a call from the inspection company. Okay. And they'll say, when can you, what's a good time for us to coordinate the inspection? They'll coordinate that also with the seller of the home. And then you'll pay for the inspection, right? Whatever it is. Let's say it's $400, $500, something. They'll go out, they'll inspect the house. Okay. And then they'll come back with a giant document. Could be like 19, 20 pages long or more. Okay. With all the things. Once you get that, okay, then you'll probably go over it, of course, and see, hey, is there anything wrong? Do we need to amend the contract? But for the purpose of this video, to make it a little bit shorter, let's just say that there's nothing wrong and you've got your inspection done. Okay. The appraisal will also be ordered. Okay. The appraisal is an appraiser goes out to the property to assess how much they say that the property is worth, just to confirm it, because the lender, right? Let's say myself as a mortgage broker, I'm working with lenders to help you get that loan. The lender wants to make sure that the house is worth what they say it's worth. Okay. And that's what the appraiser is. So that's step 7. Want to have your inspection done and your appraisal. All right. Step 8, submit additional to-do list documents. I've seen some videos on YouTube that go over this whole process of purchasing a home, and I haven't seen one that has mentioned this. So it's important. Oftentimes, once your appraisal's done, your inspection's done, you're going to be in the process of underwriting. And it could be the case that an underwriter will then come back and ask for additional things. They might ask for a letter of explanation. For example, maybe there's something on your credit that they don't understand. Maybe there's something on a previous home that you own, like a title. Maybe there's a lien somewhere. Maybe there's something that requires in the requirements, right, in the rules and regulations of Fannie Mae, say, maybe there's some more information that they're going to request. And that's pretty common. So you'll have your initial documentation when you first fill out your application, okay? But then there's additional to-do list stuff that may need to get done in the process of getting your loan clear to close. Now, clear to close means, hey, you're totally approved. The underwriter has given you a green thumbs up, green light, okay? Because the underwriter is the referee, if you will. They're like the referee in a basketball game. They give you the thumbs up. We don't need any more documentation from you. We're ready to fund this loan, okay? So once that takes place, right, you've submitted your additional to-do list documentation, and then they say, we're clear to close. Okay, good. You'll get an email from me typically that says we're clear to close. Okay, your realtor will also be notified. And then at that point now, you're going to schedule with the title company or an attorney if you're in an attorney state, because some states in the United States require the closing of a real estate transaction to be done with an attorney, a real estate attorney, not necessarily a title company. But either one, you're going to schedule a time to sign the documents. So now that's step number 9, sign the closing documents. So this is like closing time, right? Really exciting stuff. You're going to either go down to the title company, or you may go to an attorney's office, or you may have a notary a legal notary public that goes to your location. They may go to your work, they may go to your home, okay? But you're going to have a legal process where you're now signing those documents that says you accept all the terms and conditions of purchasing this home, transferring title, having your homeowner's insurance in place, and so forth and so on, right? If your house is in the HOA, a homeowners association, you agree to those things and so forth sometimes in that process of signing, okay? And then you sign on the dotted line, and now officially the house is yours. Now, funding doesn't typically take place until a few days later, okay? But for you, right, you're just signing on the dotted line. That's signing day, right? Okay. Usually that's called closing day, okay? So then step 10 is to get the keys and move in. That's it. So boom, you get your keys, and then you decide, for some, you may decide that you want to do some renovations on the home before you move in. That's what I did with my first home. Decided to do some renovations, so I wasn't going to move in for 30 days. But in your case, maybe you do that, or maybe you decide to start moving in right away after closing, okay? And that's it. And then you move in and you're good to go. So that's the 10 steps, the ultimate guide to buying a home. There may be some nuances in there, some things maybe for individual, very unique situations that I missed. But generally, that's the 10,000-foot view on how to buy a home in 2023 and 2024. Now, is it true to say that there are other ways to buy a house within there? Absolutely. There are definitely creative real estate investing ways. There's creative financing, there's seller financing and stuff like that. But for the purpose of this, for like the overwhelming majority of people in the United States who purchase a home, this is the 10,000-foot view of how to buy a home in 2023 and 2024. All right, that's it for today. Again, I'm Aaron Lietz with Logical Loan. Keep your loan logical. And if you need help for anything, I want to help you with my team. My information is in the description box below. Call me, text me, email me, and I'll help you with any questions you have. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.